with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs.
JD Vance just delivered the most brutal reality check to Keir Starmer, and it's sending shockwaves through Downing Street. The confrontation exposes how Starmer's government is jailing British citizens for social media posts while violent criminals walk free. What's even more alarming is the record 750 migrants arriving in a single day, while Starmer claims the immigration system is under control. This disconnect between political promises and the harsh reality facing everyday Britons is exactly what Vance called out as civilizational suicide. The full exchange reveals uncomfortable truths the mainstream media won't show you. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Provide for its own defense. The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within.
In what was supposed to be a cordial diplomatic meeting, JD Vance delivered a masterclass in exposing political hypocrisy that left Keir Starmer visibly shaken. The moment that sent shockwaves through Downing Street came when Starmer pompously declared that we've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom. The smug satisfaction on his face quickly evaporated when Vance called his bluff. What Vance pointed out was the uncomfortable truth that Starmer's government doesn't want you to hear.
After British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before.
British citizens are literally being hauled off to prison for social media posts while violent criminals roam free on the streets. This isn't some right-wing conspiracy theory. It's happening in broad daylight under Starmer's watch. Take the case of the British woman arrested for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. Yes, you heard that right. Arrested for praying silently in her own head. The police actually questioned her about what she was thinking. Or what about the army veteran arrested for posting a meme that caused anxiety to someone online? Meanwhile, gangs operate with impunity across London, and knife crime reaches epidemic proportions. The introduction of 150-metre buffer zones around abortion facilities has criminalised even the most peaceful forms of protest. People have been detained simply for standing near these facilities with their heads bowed. Is this the proud tradition of free speech that Starmer was boasting about? It's a perfect illustration of how disconnected political elites have become from everyday citizens' concerns. What's particularly galling is how Starmer's government wraps this authoritarianism in the language of compassion and protection. They're not restricting your speech, they're preventing harmful content. They're not policing your thoughts, they're promoting online safety. The doublespeak would make Orwell's head spin. The confrontation between Vance and Starmer wasn't just about scoring political points. It exposed the fundamental disconnect between how political leaders view their role versus what citizens expect. While Americans understand freedom as protection from government overreach, the UK model increasingly treats citizens as children who need protection from their own thoughts and words. This trend reflects a wider problem of authorities prioritising political correctness over addressing genuine societal problems. Rather than tackling the root causes of crime, economic hardship, or social division, it's easier to silence those who point out these failures. Nowhere is this prioritisation of political correctness over reality more dangerous than at Britain's borders, where Vance delivered his most devastating blow to Starmer's credibility. While the Prime Minister nods reassuringly about migration control, the numbers tell a different story. A record-breaking 750 migrants arrived on British shores in a single day this May. Not an anomaly, but part of a deliberate surge that's overwhelming coastal communities. When Vance confronted Starmer about the migration crisis, he didn't frame it as just another policy disagreement. He characterised it as an existential threat to European civilization itself. This wasn't mere political hyperbole. The documented surge in channel crossings has reached nearly 12,200 this year alone, with intelligence reports suggesting people smugglers are deliberately accelerating migration before right-wing European politicians can implement detention and deportation policies. What makes this crisis particularly insidious is how it's straining Britain's already buckling public services. NHS waiting lists have reached record highs, with migrants entitled to free healthcare upon arrival. Housing shortages have intensified as local councils are forced to accommodate newcomers in hotels at taxpayer expense. Schools across the country struggle to manage classrooms where dozens of different languages are spoken, diluting educational resources for all students. Yet anyone who dares question these realities finds themselves labelled as xenophobic or racist. The same government that arrests citizens for social media posts seems remarkably uninterested in the legitimate concerns of communities transformed by mass migration. As Vance pointedly challenged European leaders, you need to start respecting your own people, respecting your own sovereignty. Perhaps most provocative was Vance's deliberately pointed joke about the UK potentially becoming the first truly Islamist country with nuclear weapons, a comment that sent Starmer's team into damage control mode. While deliberately controversial, the remark highlighted the demographic transformation occurring in major British cities without democratic consent or meaningful public debate. This is precisely why Vance labelled Europe's current path as civilizational suicide, the willful blindness of leadership in the face of demographic and cultural transformation. When governing elites prioritise abstract ideological commitments over citizens' legitimate concerns, they undermine the very foundations of democratic governance. What we've witnessed in this Vance-Starmer standoff isn't just political theatre, it's a symptom of something far more troubling. Expert analysis now suggests that Starmer's governance approach is actively widening the gap between Britain's political class and ordinary citizens. The silence from Downing Street following Vance's confrontation speaks volumes. While government officials hide behind carefully crafted statements, they've offered no substantive response to the pointed accusations about their immigration policies or free speech restrictions. This disconnect isn't merely frustrating, it's potentially dangerous. As the government doubles down on political correctness while suppressing dissenting voices, they're creating the perfect conditions for societal powder kegs. The British public isn't blind to this reality. Every day that Starmer's administration dismisses legitimate concerns as extremism, they push more citizens toward disillusionment. Vance's warning wasn't just a diplomatic embarrassment, it was a preview of the reckoning that awaits when governments forget who they're meant to serve.